Hello there. In this video, I'm going to show how I created a shoe for the Diva character in ZBrush. So I took an existing character's foot that ships with ZBrush, dynameshed it. Now I'm using some masking and blurring techniques in order just to do some modeling so that I can get the foot to look like it's got the sole on its feet the way the Diva character does. I like to select the area that I want to rotate and then just invert the mask and put the pivot point where I need it to and do some rotation. So now I'm going to dynamesh it with a little higher resolution, and I'm going to go around and smooth it and kind of tweak it and push it and pull it. The toes have been fused, so there's some tweaking to do, and tweaking that I didn't show entirely. Now let's go to the mask lasso, and I'm going to refine the mask here a little bit. And Control W, that's going to make a poly group for the mask leg there. And so now we're going to use group loops to make a nice smooth poly group. It'll have poly groups in between. So here I'm using the Z mesher, and I'm going to Q mesh a poly group all in this case. Give it a little bit of depth, and so here I'm masking it, inverting the mask, using the move tool, and just going to give it just some scaling and just some tweaking to get the shape that I want. So here I'm going to do a Z remesh. I like to do it in halves. I'm going to do it one more time. So I've got nice low resolution geometry to work with. So here I'm just taking that, I've hidden part of it, and I'm going to scale and mask and rotate like I've done previously, just to make it appear to fit the shoe. There's going to be more tweaking that I've done that I'm not necessarily showing, but this is just for the sake of demonstrating some of the techniques. So here the poly group, I've selected it and isolated it, and then there I've grouped it, and now I'm extruding the heel. I hit Control W to make a group from the mask. Here, if you hold down Alt, you can make a selection. And so I'm doing a Q mesh there. I'm not taking it all the way down, so I have that nice corner. Here I'm Alt painting to create another poly group. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other flat sole. So there, I've isolated that. And then I've inverted it. And so again, if you use your pivot point and the move tool, you can do some scaling effects. Make it align with the floor. So now I'm alt painting that selection, and I'm going to make a group with that. And then a Q mesh, and I've isolated the two. Now I hit auto groups so that I can have them separate. And here I'm doing another Q mesh, and just like before, I'm kind of leaving the little notch in between. So there's some more selection and rotation to now an isolation of those two groups, so that I can mask them and then invert the mask and once again flatten everything. So here, making another poly group. Again, I'm selecting an area to create a poly group, and now I'm going to Q mesh it to create the heel on the shoe. It's just kind of rough now. I've got some tweaking to do. There I've flattened and then rotated to kind of get the nice angle for the shoe. Now here I'm going in and I'm creasing all of the edges with the edge functions in the Z Modeler tool. You can't always go all around in a full edge loop, so you can do an edge loop partial. So I'm taking care to make sure I've got all of my hard edges. Sometimes it'll get a few more, so you wind up undoing some and then doing some others individually. It just takes a sec. So the hard edges are important because then I just went into dynamic subdivisions, and so now that geometry is, looks like it's high resolution. There I'm just using the Z Modeler for some tweaking. Now what I'm going to do is just shape the foot a little bit more so that it fits the reference. As you see above, reference is really important. Always got to use your reference. Okay, so now I'm going to use the masking technique again to make a poly group to get some of the edges that you see in the reference. Using the slice to kind of get the poly group I want. And then what I've done is I've used the group loops again, and it just makes a nice nice edges. So there I'm doing a Q-mesh on the inside group. Now I'm going to Z-remesh the whole thing, kind of going from high to low again. Here I'm getting rid of some of the unnecessary edges that were created when I did the group loops. That's with the Z Modeler. There I'm sliding to kind of keep a hard edge. Here I'm using the Alt to paint in just another separation between parts. And then I'm going to go to my custom menu and I'm going to group visible. So all that part is a single group. And then show it all again and then isolate the back part. And then this time I'm going to use the slice tool. And what slice is going to do is automatically create a poly group. Group loops again. Separate those islands out, and here I've isolated it. Then I'm going to Q-mesh it out. Okay, so now I'm kind of grabbing the surfaces that I want. Isolate, mask, invert, and I'm using the pivot point to get the rotation I wanted on that back part. Yet another poly group with the slice tool, or slice curve brush rather. Tap Alt to get the bends. Everything is masked but the heel part. So then that makes another poly group. I'm using group loops again. Now this part I'm going to, I've isolated it, mask it, unisolate, then invert the masking, and so now I can just sort of scale out this part. So this is not going to be a huge piece. Essentially all I want out of that is just sort of a hard edge like you see in the reference. Dynamic subdivision again. And so now I've accepted it, and then I'm going to delete lower. So now I'm back up to high res. So here's just pushing, pulling. Here I'm pulling out the ankle parts, and I'm going to use a dynamic trim or a flatten to flatten out the parts on the ankle there that you see in the reference. Oh, it's so fun to sculpt. I'll use a little bit of pinch to get hard edges, and the dynamic and the trim dynamic, very useful tool. Now I'm using my custom primitives, and I'm taking a strip and I'm laying it down. I just happened to have a strip. That was a nice, some nice serendipity there. I'm just kind of tweaking it so that it fits the rest of the shoe. And so now with the high res, I can get in and I can start sculpting in wrinkles that you see in the reference. Just using Dam Standard and I believe the slash brush. Different brush sizes. A little bit of smoothing, pushing and pulling. And now I'm going in and just kind of smoothing out and tightening up the soles, maybe a little bit of pinching here and there, just some smoothing, overall tweaking. And then I've got my finished shoe. So that's just a little bit of workflow that I used to do a shoe here. I hope that's helpful. Have a wonderful day.